right? Compare the French Revolution to the American Revolution. They're not just asking you to look for similarities, they're asking you to just compare the two, which means contrasts also. But in writing, we kind of like to make, in composition, when you write essays, we just like to make it clear that when you think of comparison, think of similarities, but compare and contrast paragraph or essay, contrast would refer to differences and compare would refer to similarities. If I say, just compare the two things, which is perfectly fine, it means you can also look for differences, but compare and contrast is usually the way to designate a certain style of writing, certain genre is the fancy French word, genre. It's written as G-E-N-R-E, which means kind or type, but pronounced as genre. This is the genre of essay or writing. So genre of writing could be comparison, contrast, descriptive, narrative, argumentative, causal analysis. We are doing some of those. Other ways of thinking about genres is the kind of how would you classify the content? So it could be, I like mysteries, you like thrillers, romance, history, science, autobiography, right? If you go to a bookshop or a library, you will see different genres. Do people understand, right? So remember, we say comparison, contrast, which means clearly asking you to compare, to look for similarities as well as differences. So basically the idea here is that you can compare two subjects, but there has to be some basis for comparison. Not only do you need more than one to compare and contrast, another thing is you have to find a topic where those two things have some basis for comparison. What does that mean? It means you can't go completely wild and choose two different things that are like they're not even on, there is absolutely no basis for comparison. There is not even a little bit of commonality in two things to be compared. So if you take those, then people would say, well, you seem to be comparing, how many of you have heard this expression, apples and oranges? You've heard when people say, you're comparing apples and oranges. This is a very good argument fallacy too. Fallacy means those things that make arguments weak. You do some people like, oh my God, you're comparing apples and oranges, suggesting that these two things cannot be compared. Although I personally think apples and oranges can be compared.
They're
Why?
both
Because
fruits.
they're both fruits. So sometimes we use the wrong thing, but the idea here is you got it right. There has to be some commonality, some basis of comparison. So look for something. Don't look for something that is so wildly different. That I'm going to compare
apples and stuff.
huh?
Keyboard apples.
Peoples and apples, yeah, okay. Not apples and oranges, but peoples and with apples. You know, that's not a good topic, right? So choose wisely. Things that can be compared, right? So if you're doing electronic cars, appliances, people, so can't just say, sometimes people do, I read someone who did, I want to compare like my neighbor to my mother. Like, come on. Like, who, like, that's kind of ridiculous. Right?
Well, mom and dad.
Maybe you can do two neighbors, mom and dad, two parents, right? There is a basis of similarity. Although I wish people would not, like if parents did that, I'm going to compare and contrast. my 2 kids. It's like a Sophie's choice I was telling you about. 1 kid is, but people do that, You can do it if you feel like doing it, why not? So make sure that they have some basis for comparison. That's the other thing you have to remember when you choose a topic or you choose a thing or place or object or appliance or whatever to attitudes to compare, right? So people do comparison contrast, as your book tells you. If those of you who've read the chapter, we do use comparison and contrast, not writing in terms of writing, but for understanding in everyday life, right? When you go to the grocery shop, which I have to remember to do today before I get home, is you have to remember to, you compare, right? Produce sometimes, huh?
And price.
Prices. I mean, come on. Sometimes which place you go to buy, right? It's like comparing Stop and Shop with Whole Foods, right? That's a good comparison.
Walmart.
2 grocery stores.
Walmart,
or Walmart, or exactly, you could do that. You could do that. So people do that all the time. When you want to buy a phone, a car, a bag, sunglasses, I don't know, everything, we kind of do it. So in some ways it's asking you to focus, and then how would you represent, not only in terms of content, but then how do you write about those things, right? So there has to be some basis for comparison, right? And you cannot compare 2 wildly different things. And secondly, they have to have enough in common. And then this is something that we do anyways, and it is, so try to make it kind of very relevant so that it's not something really far removed from your life that you're writing your paragraph about. So use that. It should not be very hard. Start thinking about it. Now, I'm going to give you what is already in your textbook, in your chapter, but let's do it anyway. I will reiterate, because what I'm finding in the 2 paragraphs, the draft of the narrative paragraph that I had read and the descriptive drafts that I have read, I'm finding that it's not uncommon that many people are struggling with topic sentence, which is why many people struggle in essay with the thesis, because they're like, I don't know what she's talking about. I know the thesis is so hard to write. Yes, thesis is hard to write, as is topic sentence, because people just think the first sentence that I write, that is a good topic sentence. It isn't. Topic sentence has to capture the main idea, the whole of the idea that is in the paragraph and in the essay. Right? So when you're telling a story, when you say there was a knock on the door, that is the start of your story. That is not the topic sentence that you should go for your paragraph. Topic sentence should precede there was a knock on the door. You should say something along the lines of what is the point of the story that you're, narrative story that you're saying. Right? What should the reader look out for? Similarly, descriptive paragraphs, 2 people just start with the description. And they'll say, I'm going to describe, or this is what it is, and I like, this person, and then describe it. No, take a step back and say, how am I going to suggest why I am choosing this? What is the point of this description? What is the point of the story in narrative paragraphs? The point, which is, think of it as, so what, who cares? If you can answer that question, that becomes a topic sentence. Does that make a little bit of a difference? Topic sentence is not just the first sentence, it has to kind of capture the essence of your story. So, here we go. Very familiar, everyone should be. We again do the test. Your paragraph. C stands for topic. For comparison and contrast, because that's what we are doing now, and con, because I can't write. So it's, comparison and contrast, right? What is the topic sentence going to do? Generally, it tells the reader what in the paragraph are you going to be comparing and contrasting. Are you going to be talking about similarities or differences or both? However, there is a simple way of just stating it. I will compare and contrast these two. The other way is to improve your writing skills and say, how do I begin? Write a sentence that tells the reader the importance of comparing and contrasting the two things that I'm going to be doing in this paragraph. You see what I mean? That would serve as a better topic sentence than just announcing, I will, compare and contrast, I don't know, Honda Civics with Toyota Corolla or whatever. Why? What should I say? Right? Cars reflect our personalities. So it is important to buy, keep in mind, right? Which flowers to look at pros and cons of the list. Then you have a topic sentence that tells you what is to come. What is it that's important, right? Cars reflect the personalities of their people. I'm just giving you one example. Doesn't mean that is what you do. But something that just does not state but captures the main idea. That's where people are struggling with in terms of topic sentence. Yeah? Maybe. So topic sentence will very clearly point out what are you comparing. Are you looking for similarities or differences or both? For you, it's a comparison and contrast. You will do both. So what you need to do is, what is it that you are comparing and contrasting? Because you have to do both. And here it is. Why? Why is it important? Who cares? Why should we care about your comparison and contrast? If you can put that in the sentence, the first sentence, then you have the main idea, right? Otherwise it's like, okay, so you're comparing, I don't care. You have to make the reader, tell the reader why this is important. What was the purpose? What is the point of the comparison and contrast? That's your topic sentence. You have plenty of time because we have class again on Wednesday. Evidence. Remember evidence. E stands for evidence. If you remember all this, no less than 5 lines, more. Believe me, comparison and contrast very rarely can be done in 5 lines. So you are increasing the length of your paragraph, which is try to write more but effectively, right? So that by the time you get to the essay part of it, you know how to convert each of these sentences you put in into longer paragraphs. But if you're like, I'm going to just fulfill because, 5 sentences is a paragraph, so I'm going to just get rid. Look, if you're just counting words and lines and not really learning to write, it's going to be a problem. Because you will lack in development of ideas. Remember, your rubric is ideas, development of ideas, which is precisely the evidence, the development of that idea. That's where people struggle. Then it is organizing, 25, 25, 25, these three things are important. You have a nice idea of comparing and contrasting. You really give the details, evidence, examples of comparison and contrast. Number two, and you know how to organize it well, right? That's what is important. Then, of course, grammar and punctuation, and then presentation and all those things. So, evidence. What would be the evidence? Self-explanatory, right? You can write about, this is about the point of comparison, not only what you're comparing, but the point of comparison and contrast. Evidence would be examples and details of things, places, people, whatever you are comparing and contrasting. You have to provide those details and examples for the readers, right? So that they can understand the similarities, the commonalities, the overlaps among things, and then divergences, different ways of saying similarities and differences. Similarities, overlaps, commonalities. That's where your thesaurus, your dictionary will come into play. And what are the differences, and what are the, so commonalities and differences would be contrasts, differences, divergences, right? So you have to provide those details and examples. Of the things that you are comparing. At least three. Like for description, I said, at least pick three things to describe as examples. Three is a good one. You can do more, right? So here too, at least there should be three details, three things to compare and contrast. At least three. Details and examples. Okay, and of course you have to organize those details in a logical order. That does not fit into whatever, but I'm telling you this, logical order. Transitions will help. We'll talk about that more on Wednesday. Right, when you begin to write, logical order would be, see how, just don't put in the details randomly. What makes sense? What is more important? What is the most significant similarity or difference? What is the least one? That's one way of organizing it, right? So that's basically the idea, right? Arrange the points in logical order. We know summary sentences. So what would be my conclusion? What do I want to tell the reader about the point of that comparison? Who won? Which thing you prefer, not prefer? Why should they prefer? Right? Those can be that can be the summary, the concluding sentence. How do you conclude your comparison and contrast information? Right? Reinforce the main idea. Reinforce the main idea. You can even start not what is the point of comparison, or you can also start for the topic sentence even saying which one you prefer and why the reader should prefer that over something else. That is one way to start, and then you can in the summary sentence say, that's why people should really go for Honda Civic and not Toyota Corolla because all the things you said, right? You can talk about your preference. Transitions are very, very particular transitions for comparison and contrast. If I have the wherewithal, on Wednesday I will put it's actually for a comparison contrast essay, but same rules will apply for the paragraph. I will put a handout. Also, I will put it up on Blackboard in this week so that you can, those of you who want to really look at the terms and how to think about A comparison contrast will have some more details than this. So there are particular words that you will have to use that suggest similarities and differences. So for example, for suggest similarities, you can begin the sentences with, there is a whole list there, but think of it. You can say, similarly, comma, when you want to write the next thing you are finding commonality. You can say, like subject A, comma, subject B also has this. Both subject A and B, so both is a term, right? Transition. Both subject A and B work on use gasoline to work. I'm just making stuff up at this point. So both, similarly, like, likewise, right? This applies. Always the initial clause, remember, will take a comma. Introductory clause in a sentence will take a comma, a complete clause. Right? So you can say, likewise, comma, this subject B also has this, to suggest similarity. I've given you at least 4. There are more. Likewise, like, similarly, both. These are sometimes the transitional words before sentences. Words that suggest transitions, that suggest contrast. In contrast, comma, subject B works differently. Contrarily, contrary to, there it would not take. Contrary to subject A, right, subject B works in a different way. Unlike, comma, similarity correspondingly, another one that I thought of. So you have a list and you have to learn to use those words, because those are cognitive cues for the reader. The reader looks at it and they're like, oh, I know what's coming next. Comparison. I know what's coming next. Those are, like we give verbal cues. I gave you that example when someone says, you know, with all due respect, what are we expecting? A disagreement. Similarly, in writing, you have to give clues. Good writing is signaling to the reader what you are doing, so that it becomes clear. So there are transitions that are specific. Those of you who have not read the chapter, read the chapter. This is your time. And Wednesday, we need to nail it. Wednesday, nobody should come to this class on Wednesday not having thought of a topic and making some headway in terms of how you are writing, so that you can do most of your work in that 15-20 minutes that I give you. Don't start thinking about writing in class, because we have 2 classes this time, right? Today's class and then Wednesday's class. So that once you have it started, things will go faster, so that you can dedicate rest of the time when we don't have class, rest of the week and weekend, to reading the next one, which is going to be in terms of degree of difficulty, is going to be much more, but that's the single most important thing: argument. Argument. Right? The 4th paragraph is going to be argument. And let me tell you, argument, sometimes, most of the times, when you go to 1005 and 1010, would require argument research essays. You'll have to read other experts, right? We won't probably do that unless those who choose argument essay to write. And don't be afraid of it, because if you choose to write, you will have to do library research. I'll show you how. Remember, you have to choose one of the paragraphs that you want to develop. But argument you will find in 1005, 1010. Yeah? Is that clear to people? So think of it, all the stuff you can do between now and Wednesday, so that in And Wednesday, I have something to see when I come by that you've written. Not like, I don't know what to write, and then write the wrong thing. No. Yeah? Is that clear to people? Same thing, your book has it. I will again put it here. This is in terms of transitions. I've already given you. There is a list, and we'll talk more about it. This is just to introduce people what is coming. So once you come, we'll first start with the quiz. Quiz is always going to be in the first 10 minutes. This is especially for those who come late. Remember, don't come late. Because once I've given the quiz already and then you come late, I'm not giving it to you again. And if there is something that I need to know why you are late, and there is, you better bring me a good reason, an excuse, and then I can think about it. But other than that, quizzes will not be made up unless there is a verifiable thing. So look at what the model paragraph, the outline of it would look like. It would look like this. The model paragraph outline of a comparison contrast, right? Model paragraph outline for comp and okay. So it would be topic sentence, and your book says very clearly, think of it as, oops, I have to do one more thing before I give you the model paragraph, which is the way to organize it. So forget about it, I'll come back to it, focus here. So there are 5 minutes, I'll do it, and this is what we are going to really try and focus on in the, after the quiz, focus on organizing, because form and structure is very important in comparison and contrast, and a little bit tricky. So there are two ways you can organize, you can write, because it's not just about content. You have great ideas, you have all the points, you know what the similarities and differences are, which is what I expect you to do. Then on Wednesday, we'll work a little bit on it, and you can do it on your own after reading it. There are two methods, two ways of organizing your comparison contrast paragraph and essay. So what are those two methods? The first method is called subject by subject. Because you can't really organize here, the model paragraph will depend on which idea you choose. And sometimes you might change your mind too. You have one idea, subject by subject. Sometimes they put hyphen in it, right? And the second one is point by point. Or issue by issue, I say, right? Subject by subject is literally your paragraph will look like topic sentence, right? Topic sentence, point 1 or detail 1, right? Subject A is this. Whoever has that, turn off your phone. And subject B. What does subject A say about that particular point? Subject B about that particular time, right? Part 2, point 2. Same thing. What does subject A write? What is its description? What is subject B? Comparison or contrast, doesn't matter. This is your subject B, subject A, subject B. Point 3, same thing, summary sentence, you're done. However, I must tell you, so your paragraph literally is divided into 2, right? 2. Half of it is point A, subject A, subject B, subject A, subject B. Point by point, yes, turn it off then, right? Or turn off the sound. Point by point, issue by issue, it will look really differently. You've selected 3 points points or 4 points of comparison. Right? 4, actually I think I gave you, this is I think the point A, point B is, sorry, this one, forgive me, this is point by point. Because this is point 1, point 2, point 3, this is point by point. Forgive me, Subject by subject looks a little bit different. So subject is topic sentence.
Subject.
Yes. Subject A, its characteristics, right? All its characteristics, right? Whether it's comparison or contrast, so you can say part 1, point 1, point 2, point 3. 3 things that you want to say about subject A. Subject B, it's all in one paragraph though. Point 1, point 2, point 3. Do people understand? Like literally all you have to say about subject A, right, is that 2 subjects, right? Comparison can be more than 1, 2. So you can say this can be, yes, if I stay with my example, this is Honda, this is Toyota Corolla. This is 1, 2, 3 points I want to say, right? I want to compare gas usage. I want to compare the comfort, interior or exterior. So point A, point B, same thing, right? Here is going to be, right, gas usage, subject 1, first A, B, comparison, contrast, point by point you are doing it. Point 2, point 1. Does that make sense, folks? Mm-hmm. It's trickier than it sounds because it was like, so I would frankly prefer this. This is the better, more clear way of writing is point by point, not subject by subject. But if you feel like I just cannot do it, then use that one. Or try both and see which one is. Come with a game plan. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Any questions? Everybody clear?
Yes.
You have the app now. So those who were not able to put their papers in the correct folder, you will have to do it. So I have 2 people who have not been able to do it. I will give you another attempt. Are you listening? Is it, Kathy, you had that problem, right? That you were not able to put your paper in. I cannot take assignments in my email, because I cannot give feedback. So how many people were not able to put their descriptive paragraphs in the correct folder? Yours because of the word problem. You've resolved it. So I will open it again and you will get another attempt to do it. And you have that, right? The only reason I'm doing it, you were within time at 8:30. Next time, don't make that mistake, because I don't know why. I know Carmen's is because she did not have the Word program on her iPad. But next time, make sure you're putting it in the right folder, right? For whatever reason. So I'll open it again for people to put their thing.